Babies. Let's talk about fear of abandonment and rejection and things that are real and alive in the spaces that I've been in today and in my life and over the last few days and weeks and things of that nature. So as you're coming on, say hey. If you know someone that is struggling with this fear of abandonment and rejection and things that are real and alive, send this to them. Invite them in. This is how we share it. Something that keeps coming up in the spaces is, we spend so much time trying to differentiate trauma, right? So if you don't know me, my name is Laura Patricia Martin. I'm a trauma specialist. I'm a relationship specialist. And something that comes up in my spaces is like, I don't know if my trauma is worthy of looking at, right? Or there's this like hyper obsession of looking at our trauma, especially as healers or entrepreneurs or things in that space. Like we come obsessed with the shadow and we're like hyper vigilantly like absorbed in the process of looking at shadow and looking at trauma. And I know sometimes, and I was talking to my mastermind ladies about this, that sometimes I feel against a wall to share my story. I know in my close spaces I do share more about this, but like on social media around my big T trauma things, because I have been through a lot. That's how I got into this space of wanting to look at things in a little more holistic approach way. Because I've come up against where it's like, oh, I don't feel like my trauma is big enough to bring to the table or discuss, especially with things like Sacred Singlehood, which is the program that I'm currently launching right now, which is like the most beautiful expansion of an extension of my heart and things that got me out of domestic violence and into love again, but like evolved from, healing me in my breakup. And that's when I first launched it. And like it held me in all these different capacities in my dating season and my single girl season. Like there's so many different iterations and things that have come from this program that it's like this hybrid mastermind model that is currently available right now. We start next week, so get in there. But it's one of those things that when we speak about trauma, sometimes we may feel like, oh, mine's not to one capacity or mine's too much. Like there's this spectrum, right? Like, and I've been in rooms with some of the most successful people in this industry, 7-figure earners, things of that nature, and they're struggling with the rejection and abandonment wounds. And I've been in NA meetings and AA meetings, and they're struggling with the, rejection and abandonment wounds. And it's not a matter of, is my trauma big enough? It's how do we want to look at this? What's the conversation that we want to have around it? And really moving through it. And the thing that I've realized, especially for, the high achievers or the high level people and people that we often put on pedestals, it's like, oh, they have it all figured out. Like they've done the healing work, they've done the trauma work, they've done the things. But what I actually see in this space is we think we can earn enough money, or our bodies can look a certain way, or, we can hit a certain peak in our career, and somehow this deep wounding will go away. And then we get to this space, and although we've had the success and we've had the things, that fear is still there. So it sometimes goes into this default, very toxic masculinity mode of hyper independence, or hustling and working 14-hour days. This is what I did in my first business, which was gut health, IBS, anxiety. Like that's the first iteration of Healing to Happy 6 years ago. And we hustle and we think like, maybe if I just work hard enough, this feeling inside my chest will go away. Maybe if I just, earn a certain amount of money, this fear that I have from my, childhood will somehow, I'll feel good enough. I'll feel worthy enough. Maybe if I just do enough and I people please enough, he'll love me and he won't leave, even though you're like married. Like these fears are so real and alive. And so it's looking at, how do we get ourselves off of that healing hamster wheel? How do we really look at these things? Because the truth of the matter is, and what I've known through the hundreds of people I've worked with over the years, is what you fear the most is what's going to come into your life. Because, hi baby, your fears will come to life so that you can walk yourself through it. right? So when we're in this space and it's like, oh my God, I'm so afraid, and oh my God, I don't want this to happen. It's like, well, it's most likely going to come into your life so you can navigate walking yourself through this. And there's two choices in those moments, right? And this is the conflict. It's either we lean in or we lean out. And the mistake that I see a lot of healers make, the mistake I see myself included that I did this, it's we get stuck in that healing phase, right? And this is why I created Sacred Singlehood and all that kind of stuff, because when you're stuck in the healing phase, that's actually very masculine energy. It's very wounded energy. It's very, I need this type of schedule. I need to make sure that I'm checking off these boxes. I'm making sure that I'm doing all this healing work, because if I don't, then I fail. And we lose the actual essence of flow and trust and intuition and all the things that make us feel safe, which is the feminine essence, in these masculine things. And when we're first starting out from trauma and we're healing, like, yes, we need those practices because we need consistency and we need regulation tools and things of that nature. But then there comes this like chapter, and it's the most beautiful chapter ever, because it's when you get back in trust with yourself and conversation with yourself, and it's no longer about the rules and the checklists and the container. It's about self. And when that starts to happen, it's like this weird identity crisis. I was talking to my girls about this. It's like this weird identity crisis of like, oh, the good gets to get better. Like, that's weird. I don't have to like have this like full death moment of on my knees and begging for life and knees on the floor moment. Like, things just get to get good and better and things of that nature. And still, when we look at that, it's like the core of the lack of self-trust is like, if I remove the borders that I put myself inside of, and I actually have delight and I have play and I have pleasure, and I get to travel the world and I get to eat what I want and I get to move how I want and I get to fuck how I want, like, will I then be loved? Will I then, what if I fall back into my old tendencies? What if it's not actually stable enough and good enough? And so we cling to these things. We cling to them. And it's honestly the thing that put me off in the healing world for a very long time, because I didn't vibe with all of that. I did in the beginning, right? Like I did all the healing work, and I had to meditate for a certain amount of hours, and I had to get the sunlight at the right time for my circadian rhythm and eat the right foods and do the right things. And, you know, it was like this pass or failing school system thing, because if I was passing, that meant I belonged. And if I belonged, that means I wasn't rejected. And if I wasn't rejected, that means I couldn't be abandoned. And yet I was fucking miserable and suicidal and wildly sick and had a whole bunch of health issues. And I posted a thing in my story today with all the rashes that were happening, like all this stuff just happening in the body, not realizing, yes, there were some nutritional deficiencies, but the reason things were happening at that capacity is because there was no body trust. There was no conversation. There wasn't actually addressing the core wound of rejection and abandonment that was driving all of this. Because when you belong to self, like the true freedom in self is surrender. To surrender to the flow and to have the conversation and to be able to do these things. And we get trapped in this healing paradigm of like, you have to ice plunge, you can't drink, you can't stay out too late, you have to sleep at this time per this time, because if you don't sleep at this time per this time, you're gonna get cancer and all whatever. Like, there's so many rules, and I'm a misfit, and I'm a person that doesn't like to follow fucking rules at a certain point in my healing, and I just rejected it all. And that's really what I realized was my saving grace, was finding the delight again, and the joy and the playfulness inside of this, and navigating the guilt that comes with that, where it's like, oh, but this is too fun. Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Because, you know, what I see on the internet is a whole bunch of, in TikToks and what have you, is like shadow work. Like, let me sit in the fucking shadow. Let me stare at my abandonment wounds, and let me stare eye to eye and eye gaze at my rejection, and really sit in these spaces. And it's like, there's a time and a place. And I'm assuming if you're in my world, you probably already do that. But what I'm hearing a lot in my communities is that we miss having fun. And we miss the delight. to the point that we don't even know how. And something I found through my sacred single journey, and what I found and I integrate into these practices inside of sacred singlehood, is this newfound, like, I wish there was a better word than delight, but like to laugh like a teenager again, and like stay up and like giggle and have no rules, and know that that's okay, and know that you're the healthiest you've ever been, and to have a conversation with body, and to feel just so turned on by life. So turned on by life that it's like, because here's the thing, like, I truly believe, like, the things of navigating rejection and abandonment, like, that's fear, right? Like, those are our fear. We learn to walk with fear as opposed to not taking steps forward because of them. And it's like, yes, like, for instance, even like in my mastermind or in spaces like that with high caliber, some of the leading people in this industry, it's like sitting at the tables like that, it's like that fear of rejection. Or in my, newfound relationship and navigating these kind of whips and woos and things of that nature, like that rejection or that type of abandonment. And it's like you can sit on the sidelines and you can do nothing. And you can let that kind of navigate your life, and you can, put one foot in and make it look like you're doing things and what have you. Or you can actually put 2 feet in and feel that fear and feel how alive it is and real, and understand that means you're turned on by life. Because if we're navigating our life through the lens of I'm afraid that I don't belong and I'm rejected and all these kind of things, you're going to be seeing that show up all in this industry. Your relationship to money and debt, and your feminine wounds not getting met, so you're over consuming foods, or you're over consuming alcohol, or you're over shopping, and you're not understanding, your relationship to money, like your relationship to clients, your magnetism, your turned on state, like the way that you feel when you're activated by someone that's prancing around naked and having turned on joy, like that's a huge indicator of the relationship you have with self, like, and the parts of ourselves that we're rejecting in abandonment. Like, it always comes back to you. It always comes back to you. And even like last night when I was talking to my sister, I was doing these kind of things. They're like, no, it's not your fault. Like certain things that are coming up in my own life. And it's like, there's a difference between fault and responsibility. You're not at fault for any of this shit. I'm not at fault for the sexual assaults. I'm not at fault for domestic violence, or, the trauma in my family, or the things that, like, those things aren't fault, but I am totally 1000% responsible for how those narratives are going to be showing up in my life. I am responsible. You are responsible for what you are doing because of that. Right? And some of us do this thing where something happens and we get so serious and we think that's the fucking solution. I did it. And then I was wondering why I was still suicidal and sad and all the kind of things. I just realized this is on my arm and I don't like it. And all the things. And I was like, why isn't my morning meditation practice working? Why isn't my, I'm eating clean, I'm working out daily, I'm getting the right sunlight, I'm, meditating, I'm journaling, I'm doing all the things. Like, why isn't this working? And I realized because none of it was fun. I wasn't infusing joy within the uncertainty of life. I wasn't looking at how do I turn myself back on when I've been so afraid of the essence of who I am. I've been so afraid of relaxation and surrender and all these aspects of life, because we're in this paradigm of like wounded feminine energy coming into this space and hustling and doing and proving and wanting to, like, I can do this culture, and like I have to overwork, and like if I surrender and if I take a nap that means I'm lazy, like, or if I'm having too much fun that means I'm not actually working, and therefore like all of these things. And we think if I just do enough then I will belong, then this feeling that's deep inside of me, I will belong. And it doesn't matter if you're just starting out or you're at the big girl table. These are things we've been navigating for our entire lifetime, thinking things outside of ourselves are going to heal it. And so if you're one of my ladies that is, or men, people, whatever, like, the homework for you is to look at, like, where are you outsourcing your power and thinking somehow that's going to heal your rejection and your abandonment, and what have you been doing? Because if you're in my world, this is not your first rodeo. I already know that. You've been doing a whole fuck ton of work on this and taking radical ownership over the things, and you're looking at it and all that kind of stuff. But what is your comfort to surrender? What is your comfort to play? What is your comfort to delight? Like, Is that childlike joy still alive inside of you, or are we taking life too fucking seriously? Because the feelings of rejection is your own rejection of that. Is the fear of that, of the essence of the turn on, of really witnessing this type of relationship with self, and thinking if we get enough, numbers in our bank account, or go on enough dates, or if somehow they choose us, we'll feel worthy. But the perk of being a sacred single woman, even if you're in a relationship, even if it's something that you're navigating with friendships or partnerships or family or clients or business or network, like, you are a living sanctuary. You're it's your job to be the safest place for people to land. And you might feel that in my page, like that is the thing that I know that I rock in my space and in my life. Like, to be that to other people, you gift that, you transmute that in the world, and it changes the world. And it's no longer something that we outsource, right? Like it now becomes a space of who do I want to be in this moment, and knowing that money is just a byproduct of who you are, and it only amplifies who you are. The way that your body looks, like, yes, it's a fucking vessel, but like the way that you're doing it feels so different in different capacities. And when we start to really look at the way that we're moving through these things, or how much stuff you have, or the clothes that you wear, or the way that you speak, or all these things that we think are going to make us happy, and really heal those wounds of rejection and abandonment. My question to you is, have they worked yet? Have they truly worked? Do you feel like you are a living sanctuary and you belong in your skin, and you're okay being alone and not being productive all the time? And, how do people feel in your presence? How do you feel in your solitude? Like, where have you been distracting yourself and maybe not witnessing what's trying to come through? Because you're too busy doing and studying and stuck on that healing hamster wheel that many of us get stuck on. And so, I've been seeing in my world, and I just like to riff on these things lately. There's no real plan. I don't know what's going to come through, but I've been seeing in my world this, the comparison of trauma of is it worthy or is it not, that I can discuss. And it's always worthy. It doesn't matter the magnitude. If it's affecting your current life and you're seeing it affect your current life, like, it matters for you to look at. And then witnessing, like, how is this coming up in my life? And am I currently, like, hyper aware of it? And, like, fearing this passing or this failing system? Or am I trying to, like, ignore it entirely because of this fear of rejection? And, like, how do you walk with it? What is your relationship to it? Is it something that you can really start to notice and love and witness through an eyes of just pure curiosity instead of judgment or what have you? It's just like, where am I rejecting myself? Where am I abandoning myself? How am I showing up in my relationship because of these fears? Am I being myself? Am I expressing my needs, my wants, my desires in an appropriate way and in a way that feels authentic? Or am I trying to, like, be chosen, and therefore I'm abandoning self, and then I'm growing resentful and bitter and all the things that are actually relationship killers and all that kind of stuff. So it begins and ends with you. It begins and ends with your relationship to self, and no amount of numbers and things and outsourcing can do that. You can. You're powerful. It's like, it's funny because it's like, you think, like, I spend a lot more time now sitting around tables with women that scare the fuck out of me, right? And each one of us thinking we don't belong. Each one of us fearing we'll be rejected, or, that belonging, we don't think we belong wound. And it's so powerful to be in those spaces and to witness and hear the conversations of, like, I just want to have fun again. I just want to dance and delight and giggle like a little kid, and I want to open up my front, and I want to actually, find strength in the tenderness of being open, instead of like feeling like I need to be defensive all the time, or like to prove myself, or have my ego go into forward drive motion. It's like, if I could tell my 22-year-old self that was so lost, I would tell her of these moments of the tenderness, of the softness, and how that's actually the strongest that she'll ever feel, the healthiest that she'll ever feel, when she falls on her heart and knows that's the safest place to land. And that actually, when you let people in, it invites this depths and relationships and this acceptance. Because at the core, that's what love is. Like, it's not, I want them, and I have a post on this, but I want them to be this. And, we all have that future list of our partners and the things, and we're all a little bit narcissistic in that way. But when you look at, and what I mean by that is, because when you look at that, it's usually just a list of all your characteristic traits, or what you want your characteristic traits to be, and you hope being with a partner will bring that part out of you instead of doing it yourself. And we kind of pedestal this like future version of self, but really at the core, what makes a healthy relationship, and what I think and I know and I see within my clients, is we just want someone to accept us. We just want someone to love every part of us, so we don't feel rejected, so we don't fear abandonment. We just want someone that sits there and like, I love all of you. I love your anxiety. I love your passion. I love your fears. I love your emotional spurts. I love the emotional honesty. I love all of these parts of you. And I know at the core of the essence, that is exactly what we want in this world. It's not that we want a future partner that, yes, of course, maybe we want them to be a CEO and entrepreneur and do these kind of things and have all these kind of things. It's I want someone that can accept all parts of me, so I can show up and I can feel these things and I can match this energy and I can feel like I can do anything because of this. But instead, it's that fear of rejection and abandonment and the things that we're doing to self that's then portrayed out in our relationships, and we're thinking and blaming and doing the things in modern dating culture and blaming there's no good men and doing all the kind of things, when really at the core, it's that we're abandoning self and we're trying to outsource our power to other people. We're trying to let this wound that has been here since childhood, since middle school, since whenever it came up from you, like, it's the thing that's leading us, and it's the thing that's disconnecting us. Like, we get so stuck in this dating culture of like everyone's playing games and whatever. It's like, it's not games, it's self-protection. And when we can start to witness life through that lens of like, we're all fearing rejection, we are all fearing abandonment, like that is why, the question I get asked in every close container that I have, from my clients to my mastermind, from behind the scenes of dating to, sacred singlehood, it's always like, how are you so vulnerable to share your stories and do the kind of things? It's like, because of this, the deep understanding that it is our human, especially the feminine, like, we are meant to be in tribes and love, and like, that is us. And then men are meant for freedom, and like, that's why they like to be alone. Like, this whole thing, like, especially the women in my world, I know your core wound is rejection and belonging. I know that. And so if I can share my heart so openly with you, and I know you get that, you feel me in that, and if I'm going to play a game with you, obviously you would just mirror that back to me, and I'm not doing that in my life. I'm going to model what I want in my world, which is heart-centered leaders and clients and people and relationships and parents and sisters and all that kind of, I'm going to model what I want. Does that scare the fuck out of me because it's been used against me in the past? Of course. But when you become a living sanctuary, exactly what I teach you in Sacred Singlehood, you're not going to call that shit in, realistically. And if you do, you are safe because you're a living sanctuary. You're fine. Like, you know that what's happening with them is just a reflection of what's happening with them. It's not a personal attack on your power or your things. And if people start to manipulate and use that against you, goodbye, thank you, goodbye. Because you no longer are rejecting self. You're no longer abandoning self. It doesn't come from these outside sources and these numbers and this hustle culture and this masculine things. It's like, it's understanding, one, the primal needs of masculine and feminine and how they're both very different, and we do not live like men. Like, when we bring it back, You're safe. You've always been safe. The reason we feel unsafe is, one, we don't understand our biology, and two, we're outsourcing the power that only you can get within. And so this is my invitation to you. Lean in, look at it. You don't, it's not another therapy or another medication or another tool. It's the integration. It's the integration and infusing more joy and intuition and pleasure and play into your life. And that's sacred singlehood. That is specifically this round of sacred singlehood. It's navigating, the woos and the stories and the things. Yes, we go through that survival stuff of narcissism and attachment and boundaries and things of that nature, sure. But it's coming back home. It's playing. It's connecting. It's vulnerability. It's sensuality. It's sexuality. It's beauty and permission and grace and things that are missing in this industry. This is why I know my work is one of the best in this industry, because it is catered to the woman that has been doing this for a while, and she just wants to infuse the joy and the play, and she knows that's her turn on stage and she wants to get back to it. It's unlike anything else. It connects the body and the soul. And so if you're someone that's navigating these fears of rejection, and you're feeling that itch, and you're feeling the, that abandonment wounds and all the kind of things, and you're recognizing that your fears are coming into fruition, whether it's through your business or your health or your wealth or your relationships, whatever that is, and you're navigating that strange in-between period, and you're I feel like I'm doing all the right things and I'm studying all the right things. Why the fuck does this stuff keep coming up? And I want to stop with the survivor mentality, and I just want to go from good to great. I don't want to have to keep having my rock bottom moments so I can learn my lessons. I want to navigate this in-between period so that it's just an in-between. And then it gets to go up. It doesn't have to go down. This is sacred singlehood. This is the work that we do. And so I invite you, we start next week. This is the last round that we're doing for 2022, or for anyone that is looking for more of a high level, high intense, that's our mid-level. It's like a mastermind hybrid. It's 3 weeks. It's coaching. It's laser coaching. It's fucking high touch. And I don't know if we're going to be doing that as much next year because of how my calendar is working out. But this round, you get all of that. And then if you're looking for something that is our highest level, we do have spaces for 3 one-on-one coachings, 3 or 6 month container. And if you want to get a taster on that, we can do a VIP day or a VIP intensive session, and that'll be 55 minutes. And we can kind of go from there, and you get the recording and all that kind of stuff, and we'll create a personalized plan. So those are the 3 options you have currently right now. If you're looking and you're at that higher level stage, jump in there. If you're in the beginning stages, because I know some of my community is there, we have the Healing Heart Bundle, which is unattached, which is fuck codependency and then bounce back from your breakup. That is learning, right? You're learning about attachment styles and boundaries and things of that nature. That's where you're going to want to tap in. But if you're looking for more integration and coaching, that's where sacred singlehood is, plus community. And then if you're looking for high level accountability, and if you're in my one-on-one container, the 3 or 6 months, you get my entire product suite. You get all of that. So you would get sacred singlehood, you would get the groups, you get all the programs, you get all that kind of stuff. So whichever you're interested in coming and joining, whatever is feeling that pull, get off the fence. If I could have told my 22-year-old self anything, it would have been stop chasing the numbers so much and look at soul. And that's where the quantum leaping comes, because everything else gets softer and everything else becomes so much more clear in that moment. And so let that be your gateway drug. Learn from my mistakes. But yeah, just reach out. I'm here to support. You guys know we don't do any sales things. My DMs are open. Any questions, anything that landed for you, come talk. Share that with me. That stuff means the most to me. This stuff is, if someone spent the time to listen to this, and, time is the one resource we can never get back. We can always make more money. We can always do the things, but like the time that that we're losing from like obsessive thinking or things like that, and we gain something from spending time here, or, the time that we get because we invest in, like, time is the one resource that we cannot get back. So it means the world for me. And so let me know how this lands for you. Let me know what comes up for you. I will be sharing this over on our podcast as well. We just had a really good interview come out today with Victoria Washington. And I'll just kind of share this over there as well next week. But share this with anyone that lands on their heart that's navigating rejection and abandonment wounds. Share this with whoever, because we love that. And if you're ready to jump in, like I said, we have VIP, we have one-to-ones, and we have Sacred Singlehood for our high-level support programs right now. But I love you so much. I always love doing lives when I have this space. It makes me so happy. And I know you're coming on at the end, but thank you for being here. And I will see you somewhere on the internet, okay? Happy healings.